The beast recognized another predator in the human's gaze, leaving the alien girl speechless. The ancient temple's massive stone pillars cast long shadows in the dying light of the twin suns. Josh Hunter adjusted his plasma rifle, the weight of his heavy combat armor reassuring as he moved silently through the ruins. 20 years of military service had honed his instincts, and right now every one of them screamed danger. The intelligence report had mentioned unusual activity in this sector of Proximus and Tauri B, but nothing about the primitive alien settlement he'd discovered or their barbaric customs. His stubble jaw clenched as he recalled the intercepted communications. They planned to sacrifice someone to appease some local beast. The temple's central chamber loomed ahead, its crumbling architecture a testament to a long-dead civilization. Josh's boots crunched softly on scattered debris as he entered, his enhanced armor sensors picking up 2 distinct life forms. The first reading made him pause. It was massive, far larger than anything recorded in the sector. The second signal drew his attention to the chamber's center. There, chained to an ancient pillar, stood one of the most striking beings he'd ever encountered. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow in the dim light, contrasting dramatically with flowing white hair that cascaded past her shoulders. The metallic elements of her outfit glinted, emphasizing both her fragility and otherworldly beauty. Their eyes met. Hers, an intense bright blue, filled with terror and desperation. She tried to speak, but the words came out in an unfamiliar dialect. Josh's universal translator took a moment to calibrate. "Please," it finally rendered in English. "You must leave. It comes for the sacrifice." A deep growl resonated through the chamber, causing loose stones to vibrate. Josh turned slowly, facing the source of the sound. From the shadows emerged a creature that seemed to embody primal fury, massive, with striped blue fur and glowing red eyes that promised death. Its claws left deep scratches in the stone floor as it approached, each step deliberate and predatory. The beast's attention shifted between Josh and the chained woman, nostrils flaring as it assessed them. Josh didn't move, didn't reach for his weapon. Instead, he stood his ground, meeting the creature's gaze with the steady, unflinching stare of a fellow predator. Time seemed to freeze as man and beast locked eyes. In that moment, something profound passed between them, a recognition, an understanding. The creature's growl softened, its aggressive stance gradually relaxing. Those glowing red eyes blinked, and in them Josh saw something he hadn't expected: respect. To the amazement of the chained woman, the beast slowly backed away, maintaining eye contact until it reached the chamber's entrance. With one final look at Josh, it turned and disappeared into the gathering dusk. "But by the ancient stars," the woman whispered, her voice trembling, "I've never. The beast has never." Josh approached her, his heavy boots echoing in the now quiet chamber. "Let's get you out of these chains." He examined the primitive but sturdy restraints. "I'm Josh Hunter, by the way, former Earth Special Forces, current independent contractor." "I am Liana," she replied, still staring at him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "How did you—" "The beast has terrorized our region for cycles. No warrior has ever made it retreat. Yet you, with just a look." Josh worked on the chains with a small plasma cutter from his belt. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's understanding. The restraints fell away with a clang. "Your people were going to sacrifice you to that thing. They believed it would end the attacks, Liana." She rubbed her wrists, her delicate features hardening. "The village elders said it was the only way. Well, they were wrong on both counts." Josh's serious expression softened slightly. "Come on, let's get you somewhere safe, and then we can figure out what to do about your village's beast problem." As they left the temple, Liana couldn't help but glance back at where the creature had disappeared. "You're not going to kill it?" "No need," Josh guided her around a fallen column. "That beast isn't evil. It's territorial, and now it knows there's someone higher up the food chain in his territory. Sometimes that's all it takes. The twin suns had fully set by the time Josh and Leanna reached the outskirts of her village. The settlement was a curious blend of advanced technology and primitive architecture. Dome-shaped buildings constructed from local stone, yet adorned with energy fields and atmospheric regulators. Josh's armour systems automatically adjusted to the dropping temperature, but he noticed Leanna shivering slightly in her ceremonial attire. Without hesitation, he removed his outer thal layer and draped it over her shoulders. The garment practically swallowed her slender frame. "Thank you," she murmured, pulling the fabric closer. Her bright blue eyes met his, and something electric passed between them. "You're unlike any being I've encountered." "Josh Hunter?" "Just Josh," he corrected, allowing himself a small smile. "And you're quite unique yourself, Leanna." They paused at the crest of a small hill overlooking the village. Torches and modern lighting pods created a warm glow around the settlement, but the atmosphere was far from welcoming. Even from this distance, they could see groups of villagers gathered in heated discussion. "The elders will be furious," Leanna said, her voice carrying a mix of defiance and concern. The sacrifice was meant to happen at precisely the third moonrise. In their minds, you've doomed us all. Josh studied the village layout, his tactical training automatically identifying defensive positions and escape routes. "Tell me about these elders. How many are we dealing with?" "The Council of 5, all male, all—" She hesitated. "All convinced of their own infallibility. They've led through fear for generations, using the beast as justification for their harsh rules." "Sounds familiar," Josh muttered. "Power-hungry leaders using fear to control their people. Some things are universal, I guess." A cool breeze carried the scent of night-blooming flowers, and Leanna unconsciously moved closer to him. The warmth radiating from his body was magnetic, and she found herself studying his profile. The strong jaw, the serious eyes that had tamed a monster, the beast. She began. "How did you know it would respond that way?" Josh turned to face her, and in the starlight she could see the depth of experience in his expression. "In my years of service, I've encountered all sorts of creatures. The truly dangerous ones aren't the biggest or strongest. They're the ones that don't recognize a superior predator when they see one. That beast, it's intelligent. It understood." "And what do you see when you look at me?" The words left her lips before she could stop them. The question hung in the air between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Josh stepped closer, and Leanna felt her breath catch. His hand rose to brush a strand of white hair from her face. The gentleness of the gesture contrasted with the strength she knew those hands possessed. "I see someone who's stronger than she knows," he answered, his voice low and intense. "Someone who doesn't need saving, but deserves better than being sacrificed to maintain someone else's power." Leanna's heart raced at his proximity, at the way his touch lingered. The thermal layer slipped slightly from her shoulder, and Josh moved to adjust it. His fingers brushed against her pale blue skin, sending shivers through her that had nothing to do with the cold. A commotion from the village broke the moment. Angry voices carried up the hill, accompanied by the gleam of approaching lights. "They're organizing a search party," Leanna explained reluctantly, stepping back. "The ceremonial sacrifice has never been interrupted before. They'll be looking for both of us. Then we'd better give them something to find." Josh's expression hardened into the look that had cowed the beast. "Time to have a chat with your Council of 5. They made their way down the hill, staying in the shadows of the local vegetation. Josh moved with practiced stealth, despite his armour, and Leanna found herself matching his movements instinctively. The village's perimeter was poorly guarded. The locals had never needed serious defences, with the beast keeping everyone here close to home. As they crept closer, Leanna's hand found Josh's arm. "Wait," she whispered. "There's something you should know about my people. Physical attraction, Intimacy. It's not bound by the same taboos many species have. When we feel a connection. Josh turned to her, his expression softening. Leanna, I feel something when I'm near you. She continued, her voice barely audible. Something powerful, something that makes me want to. A shout from nearby cut her off. A flashlight swept the area and heavy footsteps approached their position. Hold that thought, Josh whispered, pulling her behind a large storage unit. Their bodies pressed together in the narrow space, and Leanna could feel his heartbeat through his armor. The search party passed within meters of their hiding spot. The elders say the Outlander has bewitched her, one voice said. That's why the beast didn't take her. Nonsense, another replied. I saw what happened. The beast looked into his eyes and chose to leave. No magic, no technology, just pure dominance. The voices faded, but neither Josh nor Leanna moved immediately. Though the tension between them had built to an almost unbearable level, Josh spoke first. Your people might not have taboos, he said, his voice husky, but I have principles. First, we deal with the immediate threat. His hand cued her face, his thumb tracing her jawline. Then we can explore this connection properly. Leanna's response was to rise on her tiptoes and press her lips to his. The kiss was brief but intense, a promise of things to come. When she pulled back, her eyes were glowing slightly, a trait of her species that manifested during moments of strong emotion. Now we can deal with the elders, she said, with a smile that matched his own predatory grin. They emerged from their hiding place and moved purposefully toward the village centre, where the Council of Five would be holding court. The time for hiding was over. As they walked, Leanna noticed something moving in the shadows behind them, something large with glowing red eyes. The beast had followed them, but instead of attacking, it kept its distance, watching. Just like her, it seemed to have recognized something special in this human warrior, something worth following. The village's central plaza buzzed with tension as Josh and Leanna approached. The Council of Five sat upon their elevated platform, their ornate robes gleaming under the artificial lights. Behind them loomed a massive holographic display showing the sacred laws, a telling blend of ancient traditions and modern technology. Josh's combat-trained senses registered multiple threats. Armed guards positioned strategically around the plaza, nervous villagers with itchy trigger fingers, and the palpable hostility radiating from the council members. But what interested him most was the subtle movement in the shadows beyond the plaza. The beast was still watching, its presence unknown to the others. The blasphemer return, announced High Elder Thorn, his deep voice carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. And with her, the Outlander, who dares to interfere with our sacred traditions. Josh stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing against the stone. He'd removed his helmet, wanting them to see his face, to look into his eyes, just as the beast had. Your traditions? He asked, his voice carrying that same quiet authority that had tamed the creature. Or your control? The youngest of the elders, Wraith, leaned forward. You know nothing of our ways, human. The beast demands sacrifice. The beast demands nothing, Josh interrupted. It's a territorial predator, not a god. And it recognized something in me that you've never understood, the difference between true strength and borrowed power. Leanna stepped up beside him, her presence both supporting and independent. The thermal layer he'd given her earlier now draped elegantly around her shoulders, like a cloak, transforming what was meant to be a sacrifice's garb into something regal. The council has led. Through fear for too long, she declared, her voice steady. I was to be the 17th sacrifice this cycle. How many more daughters must die to maintain your authority? A murmur ran through the crowd. Josh noticed several of the younger villagers nodding, while the older ones looked uncertain. The guards shifted uncomfortably, their weapons lowering slightly. "Seize them both." High Elder Thorn's face darkened. "The sacrifice must be completed, or the beast will destroy us all." The guards hesitated, looking between the council and Josh. They'd all heard about what happened at the temple, how this human had stared down the monster that had terrorized them for generations. "Before you make that decision," Josh said calmly, "you might want to look behind you." The beast chose that moment to emerge from the shadows, its massive form illuminated by the plaza's lights. Gasps and screams erupted from the crowd, but the creature paid them no attention. Its glowing red eyes were fixed on Josh, waiting. Josh met its gaze again, and in a silent communication that passed between them, with deliberate slowness, the beast padded forward until it stood beside him and Lyanna. Its powerful muscles rippled under its striped fur. "Impossible," whispered Elder Wraith, his face pale. "The beast follows him." Someone in the crowd called out. The legend spoke of this, a true alpha, one who could command both people and creatures. Josh almost smiled at the irony. He wasn't commanding anyone or anything. He was simply being himself, a predator who understood other predators, a leader who led through respect rather than fear. Lyanna's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his. The touch sent electricity through him, and he could feel her slight trembling, not from fear, but from the intensity of the moment and their growing connection. "Your council's power was built on the fear of this creature," Josh addressed the crowd. "But look at it now. It's not a mindless killer. It's a being that understands strength and respect, just as you all deserve leaders who understand the same." High Elder Thorn stood, his face contorted with rage. "This is sedition. Guards, I order you to—" The beast growled, a low rumble that seemed to shake the very ground. The guards immediately backed away, their weapons clattering to the ground. "I suggest," Josh said quietly, his voice carrying that same deadly calm that had first caught the beast's attention, "that we discuss some changes to your leadership structure." What followed was hours of negotiation as the village's power structure was peacefully but fundamentally reorganized. The Council of Five was dissolved, replaced by an elected body that would include representatives from all age groups and genders. The practice of sacrifice was permanently banned. Throughout it all, Lyanna remained by Josh's side, her diplomatic skills complementing his quiet strength. The beast lounged nearby, its presence a constant reminder of the night's revelations. As the twin moons rose high in the sky, Josh and Lyanna finally found themselves alone in one of the village's guest quarters. The beast had returned to its territory, but somehow they knew it would return if needed. "You've changed everything," Lyanna said softly, moving closer to him. "Our entire society transformed in a single night." Josh pulled her into his arms, feeling the heat between them that had been building since their first meeting. Sometimes change is necessary. Sometimes tradition needs to give way to truth. "And what truth do you see now?" she asked, her bright blue eyes glowing with emotion and desire. His answer was to kiss her deeply and thoroughly, all the passion they had been holding back finally breaking free. They came together with an intensity that matched the night's events, two beings from different worlds finding something profound in each other. Later, as they lay tangled in each other's arms, Lyanna traced the scars on his chest, each one telling a story of battles fought and won. "The beast saw what I see in you," she murmured. "A warrior who fights not for power, but for what's right. A predator who protects instead of destroys." Josh pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. "And I see in you the strength that was always there, waiting for the right moment to emerge." Outside, the village was quiet, its people adjusting to their new reality. And somewhere in the darkness, a beast prowled its territory, so secure in the knowledge that it had recognized something rare and valuable. A true alpha, a human whose gaze contained both power and wisdom. As dawn broke over the village, news spread faster than the rising sun. 3 research vessels had entered orbit, drawn by unusual biosignature readings from the beast. Simultaneously, delegations from neighbouring settlements were arriving, eager to witness the changes that had transformed their once feared neighbours. Josh stood at the village's observation post, studying the ship's configurations through his tactical visor. Scientific vessels, he noted, but heavily armed. Typical xenobiologist paranoia. Leanna pressed against his side, her presence both comforting and exciting. After their night together, their connection had evolved into something deeper, more primal. "They'll want to study the beast," she said, her fingers tracing patterns on his armour. "My people have never seen it behave this way." "They've never seen a lot of things behave this way," he replied with a knowing smirk, making her pale blue skin flush a deeper azure. And their shared intimacy had revealed aspects of both their species that defied conventional understanding. The lead research vessel dispatched a shuttle, its sleek form cutting through the morning atmosphere. At the same time, a caravan of ground vehicles approached from the west, representatives from the neighbouring settlements. "Quite a morning we're having," Josh mused, his hand finding the small of Leanna's back, ready to face the crowds. Her answer was to pull him into a passionate kiss, her lithe form moulding against his armoured bulk. When she pulled back, her eyes were glowing with that distinctive luminescence that he'd come to associate with her strongest emotions. "Now I'm ready." The research team arrived first, a mix of species led by Dr. Venn, a tall, aristocratic human male whose carefully neutral expression couldn't quite hide his excitement. "Fascinating readings," he announced without preamble. "The creature's neural patterns are off the charts, and its behaviour unprecedented." "The beast isn't your typical predator," Josh replied, noting how the research team's security detail kept their hands near their weapons. "It understands hierarchy and respect." Yes, Dr. Venn waved impatiently. "But the real question is why it responded to you specifically. Our preliminary scans suggest some sort of resonance between your brainwave patterns." Before Josh could respond, the delegation from the neighbouring settlements arrived. Their leaders, all male as was tradition in this sector, approached with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, their attention divided between Josh, Leanna, and the research team. "We've heard impossible things," announced Chief Meridian of the Western Settlement. "A human who commands the great beast? A complete restructuring of ancient laws?" "Not commands," Josh corrected, his voice carrying that quiet authority that had first captured the beast's attention. "There's a difference." As if summoned by their discussion, a familiar growl resonated from the nearby forest. The beast emerged, its massive form drawing gasps from both the researchers and the delegation. It padded directly to Josh, ignoring the weapons that were hastily drawn. "Extraordinary," breathed Dr. Venn, his instruments whirring. "The neural synchronization is even stronger in close proximity. Captain Hunter, your military background combined with some unique genetic markers seems to create a resonance that—" The beast growled, cutting off the scientist's rambling, its red eyes fixed on Josh, communicating something that transcended species barriers. Josh nodded, understanding instantly. "There's a group of poachers," he announced, "approaching from the south. The beast came to warn us." Dr. Venn's instruments confirmed it moments later. A heavily armed vessel was indeed approaching, its signature matching known poaching operations. The beast's intelligence and loyalty had potentially saved them from a surprise attack. "Well," Josh said, his predatory grin matching the beast's bared fangs, "shall we show these poachers why this territory is protected?" The next few hours demonstrated why Josh's reputation in Special Forces had been legendary. He coordinated a defence that combined the beast's natural hunting abilities, the villagers' knowledge of the terrain, and the researchers' advanced technology. The poachers never stood a chance. Later, as the twin sun set, Josh and Leanna found themselves back in their quarters. The day's events had only strengthened their bond, the shared danger and triumph creating new layers of intimacy between them. "The researchers want to study our connection too," Leanna murmured, her fingers tracing the fresh scratch on his armour from the day's battle. "They say our biochemical compatibility is as unusual as your link with the beast." Josh pulled her closer, his touch igniting that now familiar fire between them. "Some things don't need scientific explanation," he growled, his voice carrying that same intensity that had first made the beast submit. Their passion that night was primal, a celebration of survival and connection that transcended species barriers. The beast's distant roar of triumph over their shared victory seemed to echo their own private celebration. The next morning brought new challenges. The successful defence against the poachers had elevated the village's status, and more settlements were requesting guidance on reforming their own traditions. The researchers had discovered that the beast species had an ancient connection to humanity, dating back to the early exploration days. "Your presence here wasn't chance," Dr. Venn explained, reviewing his findings. "This species remembers humanity from centuries ago. They pass the memory through generations, recognizing humans as worthy apex predators." "That explains the immediate recognition," Leanna added, her diplomatic skills helping bridge the gap between scientific curiosity and practical application. "But not why this particular beast chose to ally with us." "Perhaps," Josh suggested, watching the beast patrol the village perimeter, "some connections go beyond scientific explanation. Sometimes predator recognizes predator. Strength knows strength, and that's enough." The ancient temple, where Josh had first encountered Liana, took on new significance as Dr. Venn's team decoded its weathered inscriptions. The morning light filtered through crumbling columns, casting intricate patterns across the stone floor, where the beast now lounged comfortably, its massive form at ease in the presence of the researchers. "These markings," Dr. Venn explained, his fingers tracing faded symbols, "they're not just decorative, they're a record of an ancient partnership between humans and what we're calling the alpha species, your beast's ancestors." Josh stood nearby, one hand resting casually on his holstered weapon, the other intertwined with Liana's. Her presence had become essential to him, their connection deepening with each passing day. The beast's red eyes tracked their movements with intelligent interest. "According to these records," continued Dr. Venn, "the alpha species possesses sophisticated telepathic abilities. They form symbiotic relationships with early human explorers, recognizing in them a similar predatory nature, but also a capacity for protection and leadership." The beast rumbled softly, as if confirming the scientist's words. Josh had noticed its communications becoming more nuanced, its gestures and vocalizations carrying increasingly complex meanings. "But there's more," Dr. Venn added, excitement colouring his scholarly tone. "The texts speak of certain humans, those with specific genetic markers, who could form deeper connections with the alpha species. These partnerships often coincided with significant evolutionary leaps in both species' development." Leanna's grip on Josh's hand tightened. "And the presence of a third species, like my people?" "That's where it gets interesting," Dr. Venn replied, adjusting his instruments. "Your species, the Lumen, are mentioned as catalysts, beings whose presence could enhance and stabilize the human-alpha bond." The beast rose suddenly, padding over to where Josh and Leanna stood. Its behaviour had grown more deliberate since they'd begun decoding the temple's secrets. It pressed its massive head against Josh's free hand, and suddenly his mind filled with images, not just impressions, but clear communications. "It's showing me something," Josh said, his voice tight with concentration. "The ancient partnerships. They weren't just about hunting or protection. They were about balance. Humans provided their strategic thinking. The alpha species provided the raw power and the lumen. He looked at Liana, his eyes intense. They provided the harmony that made it all work. Liana's skin glowed with that ethereal blue luminescence that Josh had come to associate with their most intimate moments. "We're not just rediscovering this connection," she whispered. "We're living it." The beast's communication continued, showing Josh visions of ancient times when the three species had worked together to maintain peace across multiple star systems. The partnership had ended during some great cataclysm, but the potential for reconnection had remained, passed down through generations of genetic memory. Later that evening, in their private quarters, Josh and Liana explored their own connection with renewed understanding. Their passion was heightened by the knowledge that their union was part of something greater, something written in the stars eons ago. "Your touch," Liana murmured against his skin. "It's like completing a circuit that's been waiting to be closed for centuries." Josh responded with actions rather than words, his warrior's hands gentle yet possessive. Their joining was both primal and transcendent, a celebration of not just their love, but their place in a greater cosmic design. The next morning brought new revelations. The beast had begun communicating with others of its kind across vast distances, drawing them to the temple. Each new arrival showed the same respect to Josh that the first beast had, creating an expanding network of human, alpha, and lumen connections. "It's remarkable, Doctor," Ven observed, watching as another alpha beast arrived at the temple grounds. "They're not just recognizing you as a fellow predator anymore. They're acknowledging you as part of an ancient alliance." "The question is," Josh said, watching the newcomers interact with their original beast, "what do they expect us to do with this alliance?" The answer came through another shared vision, this time experienced by both Josh and Liana simultaneously. The alpha species showed them threats gathering at the edges of known space, threats that could only be faced by the combined strengths of all three species. "They need us," Liana realized, her diplomatic training helping her process the implications. "Not just our individual abilities, but the synthesis of what we can become together." Josh pulled her closer, feeling the familiar surge of protective instinct mixed with something deeper. "Then they'll have us. But first, we need to understand exactly what we're capable of." The beast, their beast, approached, its red eyes glowing with purpose. It pressed its forehead against both of them, and suddenly the connection exploded into clarity. Josh's tactical genius, Liana's diplomatic insights, and the beast's raw power merged into a single consciousness, offering a glimpse of their true potential. When they emerged from the shared vision, both Josh and Liana were breathing heavily, their bodies humming with energy. The beast stood proudly beside them, its presence completing a circuit that had waited millennia to be restored. "Well," Josh said, his predatory grin matching the beast's, "looks like we have work to do." The Interstellar Council chamber hummed with tension as representatives from a dozen worlds gathered to hear Josh, Liana, and Dr. Ven present their findings. The beast, now known by its proper species name, Primus, lay regally at Josh's feet, its presence both reassuring and provocative to the assembled dignitaries. "The threat approaching our borders isn't just another aggressive species," Josh explained, his commanding presence drawing all eyes. "It's entropy itself, a wave of cosmic deterioration that our ancestors once fought together." Liana stepped forward, her diplomatic training enhanced by their deepening connection. The ancient partnership between humans, Lumini, and the alpha species wasn't just about power. It was about maintaining universal balance. The chamber's holographic displays showed the evidence they'd gathered. The approaching wave of entropy, the ancient defensive networks lying dormant across the galaxy, and the unique energy patterns generated when the three species worked in harmony. "Our preliminary tests show that the combined resonance of our three species can stabilize affected regions," Dr. Venn added, projecting data from their recent experiments. But we need full cooperation from all worlds to reactivate the ancient network. A murmur ran through the assembly. An elderly Lumen elder raised his hand. And this intimate connection between human and Lumini. It's essential to the process. Josh felt Liana's hand slip into his, their touch generating that familiar electric current. The connection between all three species is key, he replied, meeting the elder's gaze with the same unwavering intensity that had first tamed Primus. Each partnership creates a unique, harmonic frequency. The beast rumbled in agreement, its red eyes scanning the chamber with intelligent assessment. Through their enhanced connection, Josh could sense its thoughts, pride in their achievements, determination to face the coming challenge, and amusement at the politician's discomfort. Later that evening, in their private quarters aboard the station, Josh and Liana celebrated another successful presentation. Their passion had only grown stronger with each new discovery about their destiny, each touch carrying echoes of ancient power and future potential. "They're starting to understand," Liana whispered against his chest, her pale blue skin luminescent with emotion. "But some still can't accept how complete our union must be." Josh traced the delicate patterns on her skin, marvelling at how their bodies seemed designed to fit together. "They'll accept it when they see the results. The old prejudices don't stand a chance against cosmic necessity." Their lovemaking that night was both tender and fierce, a perfect balance of human strength and lumen grace. Through their enhanced connection, they could feel Primus's satisfied presence in the back of their minds, completing their trinity. The next morning brought new challenges and opportunities. Representatives from various worlds had begun arriving with their own alpha species partners, seeking guidance in forming the connections needed to combat the entropy wave. "Watch them," Josh instructed a group of human military officers, indicating their interaction with Primus. "It's not about domination, it's about mutual recognition of strength and purpose." Liana worked with Lumen diplomats, helping them understand their role as catalysts and stabilizers. "Our people were never meant to be sacrificed," she explained. "We were meant to be equal partners in this cosmic dance." The beast demonstrated its own teaching abilities, communicating complex concepts to its kin through a combination of telepathy and physical demonstration. The sight of dozens of alpha beasts learning to work with humans and Lumini was both impressive and inspiring. Dr. Venn's team made breakthrough after breakthrough, mapping the ancient defense network and calculating optimal positions for the new partnerships. "Each triad will need to take a position at specific nodal points," he explained. "The combined resonance will create a barrier against the entropy wave." As the day progressed, Josh found himself increasingly drawn to the station's observation deck. The view of space reminded him of his first days as a Special Forces officer, when the galaxy seemed full of threats to be confronted. Now understood that true strength lay not in facing threats alone, but in forming the right alliances. Liana found him there, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Their reflection in the viewport showed what they'd become. No longer just a human warrior and a Lumini diplomat, but something new, something that transcended both their species. "Having deep thoughts, my predator?" she teased, though her tone carried genuine curiosity. Josh turned to face her, still amazed by how her beauty affected him. Thinking about how one UNL changed everything. If Primus hadn't recognized what it saw in my eyes that day, it would have found you eventually," she assured him. "Some connections are written in the stars themselves." Their kiss was interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Venerdi. The first test of a completed network node had been successful. A small region of space had been completely protected from the entropy effect. "It's really going to work," Josh breathed, holding Liana close as they watched the data stream in. Humanity's drive, your people's harmony, and the alpha species' power together were stronger than any force in the universe. Primus joined them on the observation deck, its massive form moving with characteristic grace. Through their shared connection, they felt its satisfaction and anticipation. The beast that had once been feared as a monster was now a crucial part of the galaxy's salvation. "You know what this means?" Liana said softly, her eyes glowing with emotion and promise. "Once the network is fully operational." Josh grinned, pulling her closer. "We'll have a universe to explore together, all three of us. And something tells me we'll find even more surprises out there." The beast rumbled its agreement, its red eyes reflecting the starlight. Together they stood, watching the galaxy spread out before them. No longer a place of threats and sacrifices, but a realm of endless possibilities for their unique partnership. 1 year after the successful activation of the defense network, Josh stood at the helm of the exploration vessel Trinity, watching as an uncharted star system materialized before them. Liana's delicate fingers danced across the navigation console, her movements synchronized with his tactical assessments. Primus lounged on a specially designed platform nearby, its red eyes scanning the unknown expanse with predatory anticipation. "The entropy barrier is holding perfectly," Liana announced, her voice carrying that musical tone that still made Josh's heart race. "All three resonance frequencies are in harmony." The ship itself was a testament to their unique partnership, designed to accommodate human efficiency, Lumini intuition, and alpha species strength. The crew, composed of all three races, worked together with a synchronicity that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. "New world, new possibilities," Josh mused, his hand finding its familiar place at the small of Liana's back. Through their enhanced connection, he could feel her excitement matching his own. "Ready to make first contact?" Primus rumbled its approval, sharing images of previous successful explorations through their mental link. The beast had proven invaluable in these missions, its instincts often detecting threats or opportunities that even the most sophisticated sensors missed. As they entered orbit around a promising planet, Josh reflected on how far they'd come from that first meeting in the temple. The moment when a beast recognized a fellow predator had sparked a chain of events that transformed the galaxy. The planet below showed signs of intelligent life, cities that blended seamlessly with their environment, technology that seemed to pulse with organic energy. Their initial scans revealed a civilization that might be ready to join the growing alliance of species. "They're responding to our contact signal," Liana announced, her skin glowing with that ethereal luminescence that Josh had come to associate with their most profound moments. "And they're asking specifically about our triad. Configuration." They'd seen it before. The revelation sent ripples of excitement through the bridge crew, each new civilization they encountered that recognized their partnership configuration added another piece to the ancient puzzle they were reassembling. Later that evening, in their private quarters, Josh and Liana celebrated another successful first contact. Their passion had evolved along with their connection, each intimate moment now carrying echoes of cosmic significance. Their bodies moved together with practiced familiarity, yet never diminishing excitement. Their union, a perfect balance of strength and grace. "Remember when you thought you were rescuing me?" Liana teased afterward, tracing the scars on his chest. "And now look at us, exploring the unknown reaches of space together." Josh pulled her closer, savoring the way her pale blue skin contrasted with his. "I still think I'm the lucky one here, though I suspect Primus has planned it all along." Through their mental link, they felt the beast's amused agreement. It had indeed recognized something special that day, not just a fellow predator, but a potential catalyst for change that would reshape the galaxy. The next morning brought new adventures. The planetary civilization below had invited them to participate in an ancient ceremony, one that bore striking similarities to the rituals described in the temple where their journey began. But this time, there would be no sacrifices. Instead, the ceremony celebrated the harmony between strength and wisdom, between predator and protector. Josh, Lyanna, and Primus took their places in the ritual, their combined presence completing a circuit of energy that had laid dormant for millennia. The stars themselves remember, the planetary elder told them afterward. They remember when the three great races walked together, bringing balance to the cosmos. And now you've returned, showing us the way forward. As they prepared to depart, Josh stood with Lyanna on the observation deck, watching the planet recede. Primus joined them, its massive form moving with the grace that still amazed other species. "We've come full circle," Josh said softly, holding Lyanna close. "From a temple where fear ruled to temples that celebrate understanding. From sacrifice to partnership." Lyanna turned in his arms, her eyes glowing with love and promise. "And we're just beginning. There are so many more worlds to explore, so many more connections to forge." Primus shared a vision through their link, countless stars spreading out before them, each holding new possibilities for their unique alliance. The beast that had once been feared as a monster now helped guide them toward humanity's greatest adventure. "You know what still amazes me?" Josh said, pulling Lyanna into a passionate kiss. "How one look changed everything. One moment of recognition between predators opened up a whole new future." Their future stretched out before them, like the starfire expanse, full of promise, adventure, and the kind of love that transcended species. Together, they would continue to explore, to learn, and to show the galaxy that the most powerful force wasn't fear or strength alone, but the harmony that came from understanding. As the Trinity jumped to its next destination, Josh held Lyanna close, feeling Primus's satisfied presence in their minds. They were no longer just a human warrior, a Lumini diplomat, and an alpha beast. They were pioneers of a new age, proof that the most unlikely connections could lead to the most beautiful outcomes. The beast had recognized another predator in the human male's gaze that day in the temple, but what it had really seen was the future. A future where strength served wisdom, where fear gave way to understanding, and where love knew no boundaries. And that future was just beginning.